It always strikes me as incredible when I hear dictator Bashar al-Assad. He was popularly elected in 2014 in an election that was fair and open. He won 79% of the vote, and 3/4 of the electorate turned out. I have studied what's going on ever since we invaded Libya because I was very curious. Why are we attacking a neutral, non-belligerent country, which is a strong ally of ours, thriving, top per capita income in all of North Africa? President Assad, I spent 2 hours with President Assad, and he's a very soft-spoken man, very much a gentleman in all respects. There's nothing Mr. Macho about him. He's just, although he's very courageous to take this on and to be steadfast through all these years of war, where I'm sure the United States conveyed the word, if you're going to stay, you're going to die. And he had to talk with his wife and his children and say, if we leave, these people are going to be slaughtered, and we're not going to leave. And that means we are going to be prepared for the ultimate end. When ISIS attacked Palmyra, they did so with tanks, with artillery pieces, with trucks. There were probably thousands of vehicles coming across the desert to attack and seize Palmyra. Palmyra is a gem that really is a possession not only of Syria, but of all mankind, of all civilization. When Jesus Christ walked the earth, there were 2,000 years of civilization built one upon the other in Palmyra already. And then, of course, 2,000 years passed. There were beautiful temples and Roman columns.
The Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, the Hebrews, the Indians, the Chinese, Japanese, and Tibetans, the Greeks, the Romans, the Inca, Aztec, and Maya, as well as hundreds of other cultures besides, all record in song, verse, sacred script, and oral tradition a time long ago when the gods descended from heaven to dwell among men and mingle their seed with the human race until a great cataclysm destroyed their world. Many of these ancient records also prophesy a time when the gods will return to resurrect their empire and reinsert themselves into the human genome. The hierarchy of the Church of Rome is a continuation of the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian priesthood. The fish-head mitres worn by the highest-ranking officials of the church represent a Mesopotamian hybrid demigod known as Uwana Adapa to the Sumerians, Oannes to the Greeks, and Dagon to the Hebrews. According to legend, Oannes was a hybrid fishman who emerged out of the sea to re-instruct mankind in the lost arts of science, technology, and civilization that the gods had revealed to men before their empire was destroyed in the cataclysm of the flood. Since the conception of the Roman Catholic institution in the 4th century, under the direction of Emperor Constantine, the Church of Rome has become the epicenter of occult power on earth, hijacking the gospel of Jesus Christ and masquerading as his bride, thus making herself the mother of all harlots. Rome has always been the seat of the Pontifex Maximus, beginning with the imperial Caesars, until the crown and scepter were inherited by the popes.
But we were so anxious to topple the Syrian government that somehow, with all of our satellite technology and all of our night vision stuff and everything else, we were not able to detect 1,000 ISIS vehicles coming across the desert so that we could stop them and protect this UNESCO World Heritage Site that has been famous for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we deliberately allowed ISIS to seize Palmyra.
The obelisk represents the phallus of the Egyptian deity Osiris. Osiris himself is symbolic of the Watchers who descended from heaven and taught mankind forbidden knowledge. In myth, Osiris was killed by another god, and his body was torn into 14 pieces, which were scattered all over the earth. In order to resurrect Osiris from the dead, his dismembered body had to be reassembled. Eventually, 13 of the 14 pieces were recovered by his wife, the goddess Isis, but the 14th piece, the phallus, was never found, so Isis fashioned an artificial golden phallus to replace it. After assembling the 13 pieces together with the golden phallus, Isis raised Osiris from the dead. The great work of the mystery schools is to recover the lost knowledge of the gods and resurrect their empire, the Golden Age. The phallus of Osiris, the obelisk, is a sign of defiance against the Lord and allegiance to the fallen angels.
And we deliberately allowed ISIS to seize Palmyra because it's on a direct course for Damascus. Mm-hmm. And we figured, hey, if they can topple the government, more power to them. Well, the government stopped them after they seized Palmyra, but they seized it, and it's the most fantastic place. Even today, you can tell after they have vandalized, after they have blown down columns, ancient columns that had stood there for thousands and thousands of years. They came in and they captured the chief archaeologist of Palmyra. He'd been there tending to these things for 40 years, and he was 82 years old, and they captured him. This man stayed there so that he could tell them, look, please, don't damage the history. Well, they want to damage history. They want to destroy every evidence, every trace of civilization. And so they came in and they tortured this man, the archaeologist, for a month. And they knew that he had concealed some of the most precious artifacts, and he knew the locations, and they tortured him, and he refused to break. And at the end of a month, they said, well, if you do not, we're going to behead you. And they took him out, and they took him in the square, and I stood in the square where he was, and they cut his head off. And then they hung his body from a Roman column. I had the great pleasure of meeting the son of the chief archaeologist, and they said, this is the son of the man who protected Palmyra and who gave his life. And it came to me, and I told him, of course through an interpreter, I said, you know what? I said, 1,000 years from now, when people are coming to visit Palmyra from around the world, they're going to be told about your father and how he sacrificed his life to preserve what he could of this great heritage site. We could have prevented this if the coalition had been allowed, but this heroic man, his body hung from the Roman columns because of our refusal to allow the military to strike. And so when I was there, the Syrian army, with the help of the Russians came in, and they took the war against terror seriously. And they went after Al-Qaeda. We complained terribly. Oh, you're not after ISIS. Instead, you're after Al-Qaeda, the group that killed 3,000 Americans on 9/11. We can't have that. You should be after the enemy that we choose. Well, once they got ISIS or Al-Qaeda under control, they went after ISIS. And so with their help, the Syrian army went in, and you know, I fought in the Marines in some of the most fierce combat in the Vietnam War. And I stood with the Syrian generals on the ridge line, absolutely barren of any protection whatsoever. And they showed me where they had attacked from 3 different directions. And at the top of the ridge, high up, was this castle, this citadel. and they had to seize the citadel in the wide open. This is the courage and the valor of the Syrian troops. You know, I interacted with the military. We had a lot of security because we were about to enter Indian country. I got to review some of the troops on the ridgeline, the troops who had seized it. But I looked at those people and I thought, my gosh, you know, I was wounded, my radio men killed beside me, and what I did was nothing. It was trivia compared to what you people have done, fighting year after year after year. They've opened up a major airfield, and I went in one of the revetments, and the air crew came right out and met me. The two pilots were ready to hook on their parachutes and jump in the plane at a moment's notice, and they had actually been flying one of these jets as security while I was going around Palmyra. And when we left Palmyra, we had a truck with a dual-barreled heavy automatic cannon that was in the front. We were in a 4-ton bulletproof car. We had the jet swooping down on the right, and we had 4 assault helicopters close by on the left, and then a column of security troops behind us ready to get out into the assault if we had to. So the Army is so phenomenal. The things they have done, I mean, I've known a lot of fine troops, and I've fought with a lot of fine troops, and I can't think of any greater honor than to be around these people who have defended civilization against the barbarians for 5 years. And I'm so distraught that our country is on the side of the barbarians, trying to wipe and erase all evidence of civilization that decent men have preserved for 4,000 years.
This is something that's so important for the American people to understand, because as you were describing Syria, they'll call it a beautiful mosaic. It's all these different colors working together to create a beautiful picture. And the so-called revolution, this regime change coup, the desire is to take that beautiful mosaic and make it all one color, black. Yeah. So the culture is under attack. Women's rights are under attack. Women have basically equal rights there. Woman vice president, woman leader of parliament. The leading political advisor to President Assad is Dr. Shaban, a woman. Professors, scientists, teachers, you know, the women play this role. That's getting under attack. Right. The historical, cultural aspect is under attack. All of those fabulous, some of the greatest archaeological treasures in the world have been destroyed and looted. Every aspect of this amazing mosaic is under attack by this so-called revolution. And it's all going to be replaced with one thing, this one black color, fundamentalist, extremist, political takfirism. And that is what is at stake here. And so the American people are confused. They think, oh, we're going to put in some nice democratic government and there are going to be elections and the people are going to decide. No, the Syrian people will tell you truly, there's no such thing as a moderate rebel. Right. They have all vowed to establish an Islamic state. The only difference is who is the Khalifa of whatever ends up. So it's a clear black and white situation. It's a clear right and wrong situation. You either support civilization, which is to support Syria now, or you support barbarism, basically. And that's one of the key messages that they wanted me to deliver.
We were made to be courageous. We were made to lead the way. We could be the generation that finally breaks the chains. We were made to be courageous. We were made to be courageous.